The hospital lights flickered faintly as rain poured outside, echoing against the windows like the heartbeat of a storm. Inside the delivery room, a young woman lay trembling, her hands clutching her swollen belly, fighting through waves of pain. Her name was Emily, gentle, kind, and full of dreams that had once seemed golden. But tonight those dreams were shattered. The man she loved, her husband Ethan, had walked out just when she needed him most. He had promised her forever, but forever ended the moment he realized life was about to change with twins on the way. Tears mixed with sweat as nurses rushed around, trying to calm her. Emily's voice cracked as she whispered his name, hoping he'd return, hoping the man she loved would burst through the door. But he didn't. Instead, her world blurred with pain and betrayal. The man who had vowed to protect her had chosen his wealth, his pride, and his comfort over his family. And just when her strength began to fade, when she felt utterly abandoned, someone unexpected appeared. The door slammed open, and in walked a tall man in a black coat, soaked from the rain. His eyes were cold, commanding, and filled with purpose. No one knew who he was or why he was there. But as he stepped closer to Emily, there was something about his presence, something powerful, protective, and unfamiliar. The doctors froze, unsure if he was a relative, a stranger, or someone more dangerous. Then, in a voice that silenced the entire room, he said, "She's mine now." No one dared to question him. Even Emily, weak and gasping, looked up at him in shock. Who was this billionaire stranger who seemed to know her? Why did his voice sound like he'd been waiting for this moment all along? And what did he mean by "she's mine now"? Outside, thunder rolled as if the heavens themselves knew a storm far greater was about to begin, one that would change Emily's life forever. Because this wasn't just a story about betrayal, it was the beginning of something far deeper. A secret was hidden in that man's eyes, one that would soon reveal why fate had brought him to her when everyone else had turned away. And in that moment, Emily's life, and the lives of her unborn twins, took a turn no one could have imagined. Emily stared at the stranger standing beside her hospital bed, her breath trembling as the thunder roared again outside. His gaze was steady, almost unreadable, yet there was a strange softness buried beneath that cold exterior. The nurses exchanged worried glances, unsure what to do. Emily tried to speak, her voice weak. "Who are you?" But before he could answer, the doctor interrupted, urging everyone to focus. The babies were coming, and fast. Minutes felt like hours as the room filled with the cries of newborn twins, their tiny voices piercing through the tension. Emily held them close, her heart both breaking and swelling at the same time. She couldn't stop thinking about Ethan, the man who had promised to stand by her side. Where was he now? Was he thinking about her? Or had he already moved on? She didn't know, and the thought tore at her soul. When the chaos settled and the nurses stepped out, the stranger finally spoke. "You don't have to worry anymore," he said quietly. His tone was deep, certain. Like he wasn't just making a promise, but claiming a responsibility he had long waited to fulfill. Emily looked at him, confused and frightened. "Why are you here? You don't even know me," she whispered. He hesitated for a moment, then turned toward the window where the rain streaked down the glass. "You're wrong," he murmured. "I've known about you for a long time." His words hung in the air, heavy and mysterious. Emily's mind raced. Who was this man? Why did his voice sound familiar, as if she had heard it once before, in another life, another moment? Her thoughts were interrupted when the nurse returned with paperwork and gently asked for the father's name. Emily froze, glancing toward the door, hoping Ethan would appear, but he didn't. Before she could respond, the stranger stepped forward and said, "Write mine." The nurse hesitated but obeyed, sensing the authority in his tone. Emily's heart pounded as she watched him sign the documents with a name that made her gasp. Alexander Knight, the billionaire philanthropist. A man powerful enough to buy anything, but mysterious enough to stay hidden from the world. Why would someone like him show up for her, a woman abandoned and forgotten? Emily wanted to ask, but Alexander simply said, "Rest now. You and your children are safe." Yet behind his calm words was something else, a secret he wasn't ready to share. A secret that tied him to her past in ways she was about to uncover. But not yet. Days passed, but the memory of that night refused to fade. Emily lay in her hospital bed, weak but recovering, her newborn twins sleeping peacefully beside her. Every time she opened her eyes, she saw Alexander Knight sitting quietly in the corner, composed, distant, yet always watching over her. He rarely spoke, but when he did, his words carried a quiet strength that unsettled her. She couldn't understand why a billionaire, a man with influence and wealth far beyond her imagination, would choose to be here, taking care of someone like her. Outside the hospital, news had begun to spread. Cameras flashed, journalists whispered, and social media buzzed with rumors. Alexander Knight seen at a small-town hospital, headlines read. Some claimed he was helping a charity case. Others said the woman must be someone important from his past. Emily tried to ignore the gossip, but it only made her wonder more. What connection did he really have to her? Meanwhile, Ethan, the man who had abandoned her, had started to regret his decision. His business had begun to crumble. Deals were falling apart, and for the first time, his wealth didn't give him control. Every night, guilt gnawed at him, but his pride kept him from returning. Until one morning he saw the news. The photo of Emily holding her babies, and Alexander beside her. His heart sank. "She's with him?" he muttered in disbelief. For the first time, he felt something he couldn't buy back, the realization that he might have lost her forever. Back in the hospital, Alexander made arrangements for Emily and the twins to move into a private estate where she could heal safely. Emily resisted at first. "I don't want to be your responsibility," she said softly. "You owe me nothing." But Alexander's expression darkened. "You're wrong again, Emily. I owe you everything." His words sent a chill through her. What did that mean? What secret was he hiding behind that calm, guarded face? Later that night, when the twins were asleep, Emily overheard Alexander on a phone call in the hallway. His voice was low, tense. "No one can know she's alive," he said. "If they find out, everything will fall apart." Emily froze. Alive? Who was he talking about? And what did he mean? Everything will fall apart. Suddenly, the man who had rescued her didn't seem like a stranger anymore. He seemed like someone running from a truth too dangerous to reveal. Emily couldn't sleep that night. Alexander's words kept echoing in her mind. No one can know she's alive. The way he said it sent shivers down her spine. Who was he talking about? Could it be someone from his past, or was it somehow connected to her? She glanced at the twins sleeping soundly beside her, their tiny chests rising and falling in rhythm. A mother's instinct told her something wasn't right. The next morning, the hospital felt strangely quiet. Alexander had vanished before sunrise, leaving only a note on the bedside table. "Trust me, I'll explain everything soon." Emily held the note tightly, her thoughts swirling. He had saved her life, protected her children, and given her a place to stay, yet she couldn't shake the feeling that she was caught in something much bigger than she understood. By afternoon, a black car arrived to take her and the twins to Alexander's estate. It was enormous, surrounded by high walls, guarded gates, and a silence that felt almost too heavy. Inside, the house was beautiful yet lonely, filled with portraits of people she didn't recognize. But one photo stopped her in her tracks. A woman who looked almost exactly like her, same eyes, same smile, standing beside a much younger Alexander. The name engraved beneath the frame read Isabella Knight. Her heart pounded. Who was Isabella? Why did she look so much like her? Before she could think further, Alexander entered the room. His eyes followed her gaze to the portrait, and for a brief second, his calm expression cracked. "You weren't supposed to see that yet," he said quietly. Emily's voice trembled. "Who is she, Alexander? Why does she look like me?" He took a deep breath, his jaw tightening. "Because she was my wife," he said. "And she died 10 years ago." The air seemed to freeze between them. Emily's knees weakened as she looked again at the photo, then back at him. "You think I'm her, don't you?" she whispered. He didn't answer. Just then a car screeched outside. Alexander rushed to the window, his face hardening. "They found us," he muttered under his breath. "Emily, take the twins and stay in the back room. Now!" Panic surged through her as shouting echoed from the gates. Whoever they weren't here for peace. And as Alexander disappeared into the hallway, Emily finally realized, whatever secret he'd been hiding, it was about to explode into all their lives. Emily clutched the twins tightly in the dimly lit back room, her heart racing with every shout and crash from outside. The sound of footsteps echoed through the hallways, and she pressed herself against the wall, praying Alexander would protect them. But then, a voice rang out, calm, confident, and chilling. "Emily, you shouldn't hide from me." Her breath caught. It wasn't Alexander. She froze as the door slowly opened, revealing a tall figure in a dark suit. His eyes gleamed with recognition, and for a moment Emily felt a strange familiarity. "Who are you?" she whispered, panic rising in her chest. He smiled, but it wasn't warm. It was calculating. "Someone who knows your past. And the truth about your children." Emily's mind spun. What could he possibly know about the twins? She had only just started to trust Alexander, only just begun to feel safe. Now this stranger was threatening everything. "What do you want?" she demanded, trying to hide the fear in her voice. The man stepped closer, his gaze flicking to the babies. "You think your life is simple?" he said. "But your husband and this billionaire, they are all part of something much bigger." Emily's hands tightened around the twins. "I don't understand," she stammered. "I've done nothing to anyone." "Exactly," he replied, a dark smile spreading across his face. "You've done nothing, yet everyone who abandoned you, everyone who tried to control your life, is now caught in the storm you never knew existed. Your children aren't ordinary. They're the key." Emily froze. The key? Her heart skipped a beat. What could her newborn twins possibly have that mattered to anyone? Questions collided in her mind as fear surged. And just as suddenly, another sound cut through the tension. A siren wailing outside, followed by a loud crash at the front gates. Alexander appeared at the door, his eyes blazing with anger and urgency. "Emily, listen to me!" he shouted. "They know about the twins. If they take them, we lose everything. You have to trust me, right now, more than ever." But before she could respond, the stranger took a step closer, his presence filling the room. "You're running out of time, Emily. The people who abandoned you, the ones who promised to protect you, none of them can save you now." Emily's stomach dropped. The twins stirred in her arms, their tiny cries piercing the tense silence. And in that moment she realized that the world she thought she understood, the one with betrayal, loss, and sudden rescue, was only the beginning. A far darker, more dangerous truth was closing in, and there was no turning back. The front gates of the estate shook as a small army of black SUVs and masked men surrounded the property. Emily's heart pounded in her chest as Alexander moved with precision, his commanding presence filling every corner of the house. "Stay close to me," he said, his voice low but firm. The stranger in the back room, the one who had threatened her moments ago, suddenly lunged forward. But Alexander was faster. In a flash, he disarmed him, pinning him to the floor with a strength Emily hadn't expected. "Who sent you?" Alexander demanded, his eyes burning with intensity. The man smirked, blood trickling from a small cut on his lip. "You think this is about me? No? It's about her," he spat, pointing at Emily. "The twins. They carry what your father tried to hide. Secrets that could destroy everything Alexander has built." Emily froze. Secrets? Her mind reeled as she clutched her babies tighter. Alexander's expression darkened, and for a moment Emily saw something vulnerable in him, a hint of fear. But then he drew a deep breath and turned to her. "Emily, there's something you need to know. The twins, they're not just ordinary. They are heirs to a legacy I thought was lost. And those who abandoned you, they wanted them for themselves." Her vision blurred as pieces fell into place. Ethan's sudden disappearance, Alexander's hidden urgency, the stranger's obsession. It had all been about protecting her children. The sound of sirens, the shouts outside, the chaos. It wasn't just random danger. It was a battle for the twins' future. Suddenly, Alexander made a swift move, signaling security hidden in the shadows. Within moments, the masked men were disarmed, arrested, and loaded into waiting vehicles. Emily could barely catch her breath as Alexander guided her to a secure room. "You're safe now," he said, holding her gaze. "I promised I'd protect you, and I always keep my promises." Relief washed over her, but it was short-lived. Just as she began to relax, a faint knock echoed from the window. Emily's eyes widened as she saw a familiar face staring back, Ethan. But this wasn't the same man who had abandoned her. His face was pale, desperate, and he carried a file marked with Alexander's company seal. Before Emily could react, Ethan whispered, "You don't know the whole truth." "Alexander isn't who he says he is." Her heart skipped a beat. Alexander's calm, protective exterior suddenly felt fragile, and a new question burned in her mind. Had she just survived one storm, only to be pulled into an even darker one? The twins stirred in her arms, innocent and unaware, as Emily realized that even with the battles won, the real war, the war for trust, truth, and survival, was far from over. Emily held the twins close, her mind racing as Ethan's warning echoed in her ears. She looked at Alexander, searching for answers in his calm, steady eyes. "What does he mean?" she whispered. Alexander hesitated, then took a deep breath. "Ethan wants the truth, but not all truths are meant to hurt. Yes, I have secrets, Emily. Secrets I've carried to protect you and these children. The twins' safety was my priority from the moment I knew about them." Emily's heart slowed slightly. She felt the weight of the last few days, the betrayal, the fear, and the shocking arrival of a stranger billionaire who had become her protector. Slowly, clarity began to take shape. Alexander wasn't perfect, but he had saved her life and the lives of her children. He had risked everything, even confronting dangerous people who had tried to claim the twins for themselves. Ethan, seeing her hesitation, stepped forward. "Emily, I made mistakes. I abandoned you out of fear and pride. I see now that my choices nearly cost you everything. But I will never interfere again. I just want you to know the truth." Emily looked at him, anger and sorrow mingling in her chest, but she knew she had no room for him in her life anymore. The past was gone. The present was here, and it was in Alexander's steady hands. Days later, Emily, Alexander, and the twins settled into a quieter life. The media had spun the story of a mysterious billionaire saving a woman and her children, but Alexander shielded them from the spotlight. Emily began to rebuild her sense of security, finally feeling the freedom to laugh, to hold her babies without fear, and to trust someone again. Alexander's calm presence became a steady force, but he never forced closeness. He let Emily find her own pace, showing her that protection wasn't the same as possession, and that love could be patient and quiet. Slowly, Emily realized that the connection she felt wasn't just about the dramatic rescue. It was about the trust that had grown in the small, unspoken moments. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Emily watched her twins play in the garden. Alexander nearby, silently keeping watch. She reflected on the journey, the abandonment, the danger, the revelation of secrets, and the fight for their lives. Life had thrown storms at her, but it had also introduced unexpected heroes. And though the past still lingered in echoes of memory, Emily understood something essential. Strength came from surviving the storm. Love came from those who stood beside you when the world turned against you. And sometimes, the most unexpected people could become your anchor. As she held her children close, she whispered softly, "We are safe now, and we will face whatever comes next, together." The story had ended, but the new life they had begun promised hope, courage, and a future built not on fear, but on trust, love, and resilience.